Welcome back to the Unpack Mindset, folks. This is Jesse, your host. Hopefully, you guys are having a good Tuesday. So I came across this video, right? It was Ray underscore philosophy, and the first time I seen it, right, I was a little taken back, right? I was kind of like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? I was a little upset, but now that I'm older and wiser, I've I believe she was asking a question, right? And I'm going to try to get through this podcast without getting upset or anything like that because you know we all grow up differently, right? And we all have different upbringings and different influences in our lives. And I believe she was sincere in her podcast, and she was asking this question. So let's go through it, and yeah, we'll talk about it.
Explain to me why there are still people who say thank you for your service to veterans. Like, to me, it seems so 2000s, 2010s to me. Like, I did not realize there were people who were still so invested in thanking the troops in like 2026. I mean, we don't do it for any other profession, and many professions are very important for our daily lives. Our teachers, our nurses, people who work at daycare centers, all these are people who have a direct impact on my life or the lives of the people around me in a positive way. But I wonder what people are thanking veterans for specifically. And it seems to suggest that people think of veterans as somehow above these other professions. The other day, I heard someone say, "Thank you for your service." And they had so much love in their voice. Truly, like it was not just a quick thing. They really wanted to make a point of saying, "Thank you for your service." Like this person obviously really, really meant it. Like, I wonder, is it a cultural thing where people see themselves as being part of military culture? So they want to show people who are veterans that, oh, I'm one of you, like I'm in your in group. Like, it just feels like there are some Americans who have their identity so wrapped up with the military. And I'm always really interested in situations where people don't have an obvious logical reason to like something or support something, but they are super, super invested in it anyway. They're super passionate about it because it reflects there is something going on beneath the surface, but it doesn't really have to do with the facts of the situation. It has something to do with their sense of identity, their emotions, their sense of community. So I just wanted to get your takes on why people are doing this and why they care so much about it.
So what do you guys think? Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was a little blown away by it, right? So let me say this as clearly as humanly possible, right? If you live in America and you enjoy even 1 ounce of freedom, the freedom you get to like talk your mess online, the freedom to vote, the freedom to protest, right? The freedom to say your government sucks, the freedom to say your government's great, right? You owe a thank you to a veteran. Period. Not because it's not because it's political, right? Not because it's patriotic, because it's true. I mean, if that sentence made you uncomfortable, sit on it, man. Sit on it. Veterans aren't red or blue, man. They're the reason you get to be either. Let me repeat that for you. They're the reason you get to be either. We've turned everything into politics, right? Everything. Even gratitude, man. Even basic respect, right? It's almost like we're going through a time right now where people don't understand where free will comes from, where freedom of choice and the freedom to speak your mind and express yourself Somehow people think that's free. You know, veterans, being a veteran is not a political party, right? You don't know. When you take that oath, you don't raise your hand and swear an oath to the Republican Party or to the Democrats, right? They swear an oath. We swear an oath to the Constitution. You know, the Constitution, that document, it protects our right to say, whatever wild, unhinged, brilliant, stupid, genius, chaotic thing you want. That document protects all the dumb shit that you hear online. It serves all of us, folks. The veterans serve all of us, even the people who don't appreciate them. They serve every political party, even the ones they personally disagree with. They serve every American, even the ones who think service is just a bumper sticker, right? That's unselfishness. That's a willingness, that's a sacrifice. That's the kind of thing you thank people for. You don't realize how good you have it until you see how bad it gets everywhere else, right? So let me paint this picture, right? Because this is the reality, right? There's parts in this world where simply being American, not saying anything, not doing anything, not waving a flag, not just existing as an American is enough to make certain groups want to unalive you. No debate, no conversation, no nuance. Just the fact that you're American and you're the enemy. That's real, that's documented, that's not up for debate. You got a lot of terrorist groups out there, right? You have, Iran-backed militias that have openly stated their intent to target Americans anywhere they can reach. There's terrorist groups out there that have spent over 20 years trying to kill Americans, simply because they're American. Russia, China, they maintain cyber units, right? And their whole purpose is to destabilize U.S. infrastructure, right? North Korea has threatened to wipe out American cities with nuclear weapons. I mean, this isn't paranoia. This isn't politics. This is just the world that we live in, folks. And the only reason those threats don't reach our front door, it's because we've got a military and veterans like myself that are willing to defend this Constitution and defend all the shitty people that don't like us. It's one of those things that you can't just ignore. It's because our military is so strong, right? It stops them before they get there. A strong military isn't a flex, folks. It's survival, right? It's survival in this world. The U.S. military protects something like 25 trillion worth of economic power. It's like the largest economy on Earth, right? And over 60% of global trade moves through sea lanes, right? Protected by the U.S. Navy. Maybe I believe Ray and a lot of people, they see things on a surface level, right? And they don't understand what's going on around them. And I get that, right? Initially, when I first saw her video, I was upset, but then I quickly thought, like, man, maybe she just doesn't understand the military, which is obvious. The military has over 700, I want to say 750 bases worldwide. And the reason we got those bases is for rapid response, to threats before they de-escalate here. You got to keep the threat away from here, right? The US spends about 3.1, I want to say, GDP on defense, which sounds huge until you realize that, you got countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia spend a higher, I want to say, percentage with far more aggressive intentions, right? Cyber attacks on the US have increased, I want to say, over 125% in the last 5 years. And the only reason our power grid, banking system, and hospitals aren't collapsing is because we have military cyber units that stop thousands of attacks daily. You like electricity? I mean, if you like your Wi-Fi, you like grocery stores not being empty. You like your bank account not being drained by foreign hackers. Thank a veteran. Thank people who stand in between you and the chaos that you don't see. It looks ridiculous. It looks absolutely ridiculous when Americans act like freedom is automatic and everybody is just nice. Everybody's nice, but it's not. Freedom is not automatic. It's not guaranteed, man. Freedom is not permanent, right? Freedom is something that's defended. Let me repeat that. Freedom is something that is defended. So you should thank a veteran. You know, I could care less if you thank me. I'm not one of those people, but thank a veteran, man. What's it going to take from you? And and the people who defend it, I feel like are the ones who sign up knowing that they might not come home. They sign up knowing that they might lose limbs, friends, mental health, marriages, sleep, peace, and years off their life. But they sign up anyways. That's why you thank them, not because you're political, not because you're patriotic, but because you're honest. Be honest with yourself. If you enjoy America, thank a veteran. If you complain about America, thank a veteran. If you're free to disagree with this monologue, thank a veteran. Because the irony, in my opinion, is beautiful, right? The freedom to criticize, you know, to criticize the fact that America exists because there's people that are willing to defend it. That's a beautiful thing, right? Veterans don't need worship, right? They don't need theatrics. They don't need you to pretend that you're patriotic. They just deserve a thank you, a little bit of acknowledgement. A simple thank you. You know, Without them, this entire country, every opinion, every argument, every protest, and every podcast disappears. I just want to leave you with that thought. And yeah, if you like my content, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Have a good day.